Welcome to Ayn Rand Star Video, or as we call it, ISVi, the collaborative lens on Vancouver, unfiltered, unscripted, and powered by community. We're not just a voice behind the mic, we're a collective of creators, thinkers, storytellers, and city lovers coming together to spotlight the people, places, and energy that make Vancouver what it is. From coast mountain skylines to neon-lit backstreets, we're covering everything from downtown buzz to the untold story shaping our scene. You'll find us exclusively on YouTube, no algorithms, no filters, just real talk. For behind the scenes, updates, and chaotic brilliance in real time, follow us on TikTok and Instagram. So hit subscribe, drop a comment, and help us grow from 100 to 10, 0, and beyond. Because this isn't just our platform, it's yours too. Turn it up, get into it. Let's talk Vancouver. This is ISV. Vancouver is that hot, mysterious ex who keeps showing up on your feed looking flawless in natural light, holding a kombucha, and talking about their deep connection to the ocean. And just like that ex, living here will ruin your credit score and your emotional stability. But wow, the photos are stunning. Let's not sugarcoat it. Vancouver is objectively gorgeous. It's the kind of place that makes you gasp a little when the sun hits the mountains just right, when the cherry blossoms bloom like a Studio Ghibli backdrop, or when the fog rolls in over the sea like Mother Nature just dropped a new aesthetic. But behind that glow-up is a financial horror film. Living in Vancouver in 2025 isn't just expensive. It's giving "why is rent the same price as a liver transplant?" energy. People move here for the lifestyle, the hiking before brunch, beach at lunch, snowboarding by dinner sort of vibe. But what they don't tell you is that you'll also be hiking up your rent, budgeting for bus fare like it's a luxury purchase, and snowballing your credit card payments just to feel something. It's a city where the view is free, but literally everything else requires generational wealth, 5 roommates, or a side hustle you lie about on LinkedIn, and yet we stay. Or we dream of staying. Because Vancouver doesn't just seduce you with natural beauty, it gaslights you into thinking a 17 poke bowl is self-care, and that you're lucky to live in a place where the seawall is your therapist. You'll find yourself defending the unaffordability like it's a toxic partner. Yeah, it's expensive, but have you seen the sunsets? So the big question is, can you actually afford to live here? Like, really live, not just survive on instant ramen in a shared attic with questionable insulation and a raccoon roommate. We're gonna break down the real costs, from rent to groceries to the price of maintaining that smug "I live in Vancouver" energy. Spoiler, it's gonna hurt, but it'll also be painfully relatable, mildly hilarious, and very, very real. So, you want to rent in Vancouver? Adorable. Welcome to the Hunger Games of housing, where the competition is fierce, the units are tiny, and the winner gets the privilege of paying $2,900 a month to live inside what was legally a closet in the 1980s. May your Wi-Fi be strong and your emotional support water bottle full. Let's talk numbers. As of 2025, average rent in Vancouver has officially left the chat with Santa. A basic studio downtown will run you well over $200-300 a month. That's if you're lucky enough to find one that doesn't include a no oven, no pets, no joy clause. A 1-bedroom? You're flirting with $2,800. 2-bedroom? Hope you have a partner, a rich parent, or a side hustle that isn't just selling feet pics, but also no judgment if that's working for you. What you get for these prices varies. Sometimes it's a garden level suite, which is landlord code for dungeon with mold. Sometimes it's a character unit, which means the floors creak like ghosts are filing complaints. And if you're sharing a house, you better get ready to bond with strangers over whose turn it is to buy toilet paper and why the laundry machine now growls at night. There's also a very special type of Vancouver rental known as the den that thinks it's a bedroom. It's windowless, doorless, and barely fits a twin mattress, but it's marketed as a junior one bedroom because apparently delusion is part of the listing. Landlords in this city are out here inventing new forms of square footage fraud like it's performance art. And don't get us started on application processes. Renting here feels like trying to join an exclusive club you can't afford, with requirements like proof of income, credit checks, references, a LinkedIn profile, and possibly a blood sample. Some listings ask for personal essays. Others ask you to outbid other renters like it's an auction for pain. You basically need to interview harder for a 2600 studio than you would for a corporate job at Spotify. The worst part? This is all somehow normal. We joke about it, we meme about it, and we keep paying it because the alternative is moving to a cheaper city and explaining to your soul why it doesn't get to see the mountains anymore. Vancouver's rental market doesn't just strain your wallet, it breaks your spirit and gaslights you into saying, at least I'm near the seawall, like that makes financial ruin okay. So yeah, renting here is a mess. A beautiful, scenic, wildly unaffordable mess that somehow still has us locked in. Rent or regret. In Vancouver, it's both. You rent, then you regret. But also, you kind of flex about it on Instagram because surviving here is the aesthetic. If renting in Vancouver is a high-stakes emotional roller coaster, owning property here is basically playing Monopoly with Elon Musk money while you're still paying off your student line of credit from 2014. In theory, it's nice. In practice, it's a fantasy, like a unicorn, or affordable downtown parking. Let's start with the basics. The average price of a detached home in Vancouver, over $2 million. And no, that doesn't get you a mansion with heated floors and a koi pond. That gets you a slightly tilted bungalow built in 1957 that comes with development potential and possibly a raccoon roommate who pays no rent. If you want something newer and less possessed, prepare to cough up $2.5 million or your soul, whichever's easier. Condo prices aren't exactly better. A one-bedroom downtown averages around $750K, and that's before you factor in strata fees, property taxes, and the fact that your balcony is the size of a Doritos bag. Want to buy something with 2 bedrooms and actual storage space? Hope you like Burnaby and a 47-minute SkyTrain ride into town. Now let's talk down payments. The standard 20% down on $1 million shoebox is $200K. That's not a typo. $200,000. Which means if you haven't inherited money, made bank in tech, or flipped a very successful OnlyFans side hustle, you'll likely be saving until your knees start making Rice Krispie sounds when you squat. Even if you do scrape together the down payment, you still have to pass the bank's vibe check, aka the mortgage stress test, which is basically them asking, will you still be able to pay if the economy explodes? The answer is always no, but you smile and lie anyway. Add to that closing costs, inspections, taxes, and suddenly you're realizing that owning a home in Vancouver requires more money than you've ever seen in your entire emotionally overdrawn life. And don't forget the deep-rooted systemic chaos. Foreign investment driving up prices, houses sitting empty while people sleep in tents, and real estate developers gobbling up lots faster than you can say community displacement. Meanwhile, every news article that mentions housing market correction gets quietly ignored like your unread therapy emails. So who does own homes in Vancouver? Tech bros named Connor with 6 screens in their condo. Boomer parents who bought in the 80s for $94K and now accidentally own a 3.2M asset. Lucky dual income no kids couples who made it in before the madness. And the rest? They just pretend Zillow listings are Pokemon cards. Fun to look at, impossible to catch. If you're part of the dreamer class, the ones still hoping to get into the market, bless your optimistic little heart. Just know that in Vancouver, homeownership is less of a goal and more of a fantasy DLC you unlock after 5 promotions, a viral side hustle, and possibly selling plasma on the side. Okay, so you've made it past the rent trauma. You're either locked into a lease that makes your bank account flinch, or you've completely given up and started browsing van conversion TikToks. But guess what? Rent is just the opening boss battle. The real villain is the cost of literally everything else in this city. Let's start with groceries. You ever go into Whole Foods for oat milk and walk out with 46 of accidentally artisanal sadness? Yeah, that's Vancouver living. A bag of organic salad mix is $7.99, and for that price, it should at least whisper words of encouragement. Buying groceries here isn't just shopping, it's a test of values, financial literacy, and whether you've emotionally detached from your avocado addiction. Transportation? If you don't own a car, congrats. You're environmentally conscious and broke. A monthly TransLink pass is over $130, and that's if your route doesn't randomly require a bus, a train, a boat, and a mild sprint. Owning a car? Be prepared for gas prices that make you consider biking in January and parking fees that cost more than your therapy copay. That is, if you can even find parking, which in Vancouver is like hunting a unicorn with Google Maps and pure desperation. Let's move on to the social life tax, aka the cost of trying to have fun without sinking into a financial pit. A night out in Vancouver can easily cost $100 just to look like you effortlessly chill. Brunch, $30. Cocktail, $18. Club entry, still weirdly overpriced for a place that plays pitbull and has a sticky floor. And don't forget the wellness inflation, where everyone's meditating, stretching, or spiraling and paying $180 a month to do it. Hot yoga, float tanks, sound baths, energy cleanses. This city will charge you to cry in silence and call it healing. Also, being green in Vancouver is practically a financial personality. You'll start feeling guilty for not buying plastic-free toothpaste tablets and then realize the zero-waste version costs $22. That's right. Sustainability here is low-key classist with a smoothie subscription, utilities, and internet. They're not outrageous, but they're just annoying enough to make you question if you really need heat or if you can survive the winter wrapped in 3 thrifted blankets and unprocessed shame. And if you've ever tried to buy furniture or housewares here, welcome to the game of do I need it or am I just emotionally avoiding something? A single stylish lamp can run you $250. A rug that doesn't disintegrate on contact, $400. Suddenly, Facebook Marketplace and IKEA's as-is section become your spiritual guides. Basically, even after you find a place to live, Vancouver makes you pay for existing in style. It's not just the housing. It's the grocery guilt, the avocado elitism, the pressure to wear neutral-toned linen and attend climate justice workshops while low-key panicking about your Wi-Fi bill. Living here means budgeting for rent, sure, but also budgeting for the city's entire aesthetic tax. And the emotional toll of pretending you're totally fine, while your bank app gives you passive-aggressive notifications every time you breathe. By this point, you're probably thinking, wait, who is actually pulling this off? Because between the $200 rent, 7 lattes and yoga class that costs more than your phone bill, Vancouver feels less like a city and more like an elite simulator you accidentally spawned into on hard mode. Let's clear the air. Yes, there are tech bros. There are also crypto kings, SaaS developers, and UX designers with salaries that look like phone numbers. They live in shiny glass towers, eat sashimi that was caught 5 minutes ago, and own 3 indoor plants named after Greek gods. But they're not the only ones affording this chaos. Surprise! A lot of people staying afloat here are dual income couples, preferably with no kids, high-paying jobs, and an obsessive budgeting app that sends notifications like a judgmental mom. These couples usually work in tech, healthcare, finance, or creative fields with health benefits and panic bought property before the market got even more unhinged. Then we've got multi-generational households, families pooling resources like a mini co-op to live under one roof. Grandma owns the land, dad built a laneway suite, and everyone's pitching in for groceries and Netflix. It's financially practical and emotionally character building, especially when you're explaining to your uncle why you're still freelancing. International students and digital nomads, they're also here often bankrolled by family or working remote gigs for companies based in currencies that actually make sense. They're the ones sipping espresso in co-working cafes in Yaletown, casually wearing headphones that cost more than your damaged deposit. They have no idea what BC Hydro is, and it shows. Let's not forget the hustlers and side gig warriors. These are the people working two jobs, flipping thrift finds on Depop, selling commissioned art, teaching Pilates on Zoom, and maybe renting out their apartment while secretly couch surfing. Their calendars are a crime scene, but they're out here somehow affording rent and the occasional overpriced smoothie. Also living in Vancouver, people who've made peace with the financial chaos and accepted low-key broke as an aesthetic. They have roommates, budget with spreadsheets and prayer, and stretch leftovers like it's a TikTok challenge. They don't go out, they vibe locally. They're living proof that you don't need wealth to survive in this city, just stamina, strategy, and a tolerance for secondhand furniture and financial instability. And finally, let's talk about the wild card. People who got in early. The ones who bought in 1998 and now casually own 2 million properties while referring to themselves as middle class. These folks are basically holding the monopoly board while the rest of us argue over Baltic Avenue. So who's affording Vancouver? People with six-figure incomes, people with family support, people with hustle, people with a shocking tolerance for debt, and people with no other choice. It's messy, it's uneven, it's somehow both aspirational and aggressively unfair. But it's real, and the people who make it work, they're doing so with grit, creativity, side hustles, and maybe a well-timed meltdown or two. Let's be real, living in Vancouver on a normal person's income feels like being in a survival reality show called Budget Island Pacific Pain Edition. The cost of living is sky high, your paycheck barely covers your oat milk habit, and every time you Google affordable housing, your phone bursts into flames. But somehow people are making it work. So how are these resilient gremlins of rent pulling it off? Spoiler, it's not magic. It's spreadsheets, side hustles, and borderline delusional optimism. First off, roommates. Like, so many roommates. People in Vancouver don't ask, do you live alone? They ask, how many people do you split rent with, and are they human? Or is one of them a dog with a Venmo? It's not unusual to find 5 adults in a 2-bedroom, each with a different sleep schedule, skincare routine, and emotional baggage. Shared walls, shared trauma, shared rent. Iconic. Then there's the holy trinity of basement suites, laneway homes, and garden-level units, aka affordable options. If you're cool with ceilings that hover 2 inches above your head and windows that face a fence, you'll convince yourself it's cozy, but deep down, you know it's giving starter pack for Stockholm Syndrome. Next, side hustles. Everyone's doing something extra. Dog walking, DoorDash, selling crochet mushrooms on Etsy, teaching yoga to stressed tech workers, freelancing for a client in Berlin while making smoothies at a co-op cafe on Commercial Drive. If you don't have a side hustle in Vancouver, congrats, you're either very rich, very tired, or lying. And let's not forget the creative communal economy. Clothing swaps, community fridges, library of things, free stores on Facebook Marketplace. It's giving anarchist co-op, but with better lighting. Vancouverites are out here meal prepping with discounted produce, biking to avoid gas prices, and thriving on recycled IKEA furniture like they're starring in an eco-conscious rom-com. Some folks are going full send alternative. Living in vans, boats, or, honestly iconic, floating homes is a whole subculture. They're skipping the landlord entirely, living on their own terms, and figuring out how to shower without a fixed address. It's half freedom, half feral, and yes, there's a podcast about it. And finally, people are learning the ancient art of, nope, I can't afford that. That 21 salad? Pass. That 100 wellness retreat where you cry in a yurt? Respectfully, no. Socializing becomes walk and talk sessions. Date nights are ramen and red flags card games. Luxury is buying name brand peanut butter when it's on sale. In other words, people are surviving in Vancouver the same way raccoons survive urban sprawl. Clever, scrappy, and mildly unhinged. It's not easy, it's not pretty, but it's resourceful as hell. And if nothing else, it builds character and some very weird but useful budgeting skills. Let's be honest, at some point in your Vancouver journey, probably while paying $16 for a smoothie that tastes like wet kale and broken dreams, you're going to ask yourself, is this even worth it? And then, right when you're about to pack up and move to Calgary, the city hits you with a sunset so emotionally manipulative it should be illegal. Boom. Stockholm Syndrome, but make it scenic. Because here's the trap. Vancouver is beautiful. Like, offensively beautiful. It's the kind of place where you can hike through a rainforest, snowboard on a mountain, and paddleboard past a billionaire's yacht all before brunch. The air smells like cedar and clean guilt. The water sparkles, and somehow, even the pigeons look like they've been to therapy. So yeah, you're broke. But you're broke in a place where your walk to work includes views people put on vision boards. You're budgeting aggressively, but you're also spending your Sundays watching seals nap next to yachts, and suddenly your credit card debt feels manageable. The quality of life here is top tier. If you can get past the fact that you're shelling out 60% of your income to live in a converted garage, you'll realize that being in Vancouver means having daily access to natural healing energy. You usually have to pay a therapist or an astrologer to explain. Forests, oceans, beaches, snow-capped mountains, Mother Nature really said, core memories only. But that lifestyle tax hits hard. Want to have a social life? That's $90 for dinner, $12 for parking, and the emotional cost of pretending you're not financially unraveling when someone suggests going to a bougie wellness cafe just for a turmeric latte. You'll spend as much time doing free things, hiking, beach walks, accidentally attending festivals you didn't pay for, as you do saying, sorry, I'm on a budget this week, every week. And mental health? Well, that's complicated. On one hand, nature is free therapy. On the other hand, the pressure to thrive while quietly drowning in bills is exhausting. Yes, you're in a city full of plant-based hot yogis, but you're also lying awake at night, wondering if your landlord is going to renovict you into a tent on the edge of Queen Elizabeth Park. So is it worth it? Honestly, it depends on how much chaos you're willing to tolerate in exchange for daily mountain porn and existential seaside vibes. For some, the answer is a hard yes. They'll sacrifice space, savings, and possibly dental coverage just to stay close to the magic. For others, the trade-off feels increasingly unhinged. But one thing is clear, Vancouver knows how to keep you hooked emotionally, spiritually, and financially. It's the toxic relationship you can't quit because they always know just when to send the perfect sunrise. So here we are, standing at the emotional edge of the Pacific, half inspired, half financially destroyed, asking ourselves, is Vancouver worth the chaos? And the answer, like most complicated love stories, is yes, but it might ruin your credit. Vancouver is that city, the one that makes you feel like anything's possible, as long as anything doesn't include home ownership or stress-free grocery shopping. It's breathtaking, mood healing, and Instagrammable AF, but it also comes with monthly rent that makes your soul temporarily leave your body. You're not just paying to live here, you're paying for the view, the vibe, and the emotional illusion that you're thriving because you once saw a double rainbow from your apartment window. which is technically a shared sunroom you rent for $1,400. But somehow, people make it work. Whether it's through roommates, resilience, side hustles, or straight up delusion, Vancouverites are masters of financial gymnastics. They'll pack lunches, walk 45 minutes to avoid a 3-bus ride, and say things like, "I can't go out tonight, I'm broke, want to hang at Kit's Beach instead?" And suddenly, you're sipping boxed wine from a reusable jar, watching the sunset, and realizing you wouldn't trade this for anything. The cost of beauty in Vancouver is steep, and it doesn't just hit your wallet, it hits your psyche. But for those who choose to stay, there's something defiant in that choice, something romantic, something a little unhinged. Because to live in Vancouver is to constantly say, "Yeah, I'm broke, but look at that view." So, can you afford to live here? Maybe not technically, but with enough hustle, enough compromise, and just the right amount of chaos energy, you can. And if you do, you'll join a city full of beautiful, broke legends who know that sometimes the view is the value. Final verdict? Expensive? Yes. Emotionally healing? Also yes. Worth the financial trauma? Only if you've got stamina, spreadsheets, and a deep emotional bond with the ocean. Now go forth, budget bravely, and don't forget to cry on a mountain when it gets too real. It's tradition. And just like that, the city's pulse slows, but the story doesn't stop. You've been watching ISVi Imran Star Video, where voices come together and the city speaks back. We're a crew, not a single face, a movement, not a moment, and every episode, that's built with you, for you, by all of us. From the seawall to the skyline, from underground voices to rooftop vibes, we're telling the stories that don't make the news, but make the neighborhood. If this episode hit, pass it on. Subscribe on YouTube, follow us on TikTok and Instagram. Drop a comment and tell us what your Vancouver sounds like. We're building this together, clip by clip, story by story. From 100 to 10K to wherever this takes us, when we get there, we all show up. So until the next drop, stay loud, stay collective, and stay in it. This is ISVi, signing off.